Welcome to our Traveling Thursday. This is actually our last Traveling Thursday of our 2022 spring series. We're not calling it series because this is, I think, our 25th webinar that we've been running since probably 8 months or so into the pandemic. We started with this, and many of you have been on our webinars for almost every other week. So we are very excited to have you tonight and to travel with us to Australia. I do want to give you a little bit of an idea of what we're doing tonight. I'll introduce our company and talk a little bit about our contests, and then we will dive right in. It gives you an introduction to diving in Queensland. We hear all about diving with Mike Ball, where and what and how, and we'll get a bit of an update on the Great Barrier Reef, and we talk about and see videos of the spoil sport liveaboard in Australia. And then there'll be Q&A at the end, as you're used to already, and we will reconvene in September at some point. So, Fly and Sea Dive Adventures, that's our team here. And yes, we have been in business for 25 years this year. I will repeat the number 25 many, many times still this year because it is our anniversary. On the 25th of every month, we will be doing things, and you have seen it on Facebook and Instagram and in our newsletters as well. This means we have over 70 years of combined experience between the five of us here. And we pretty much represent every major liveaboard, dive operator, and dive resort in the world, every good dive destination, of which obviously Australia is one of them, probably one of the oldest, best known dive destination. Many people will know that you can go diving in Australia. We are IATA appointed, which means we have easier access to airline inventory and issue our own tickets. And then what we book is dive vacations, adventure vacations all over the world for individuals, where you want, when you want, how long you want, with whom you want. We sometimes will add non-dive excursions to it, such in places like Australia. And then we also do group travel. So one of my first group trips actually was to Australia. And many of our groups are run through dive shops, and other people can add into these groups. Some of them on our website, not all of them always are. So it's always good to check in with us. Just a reminder how important travel insurance is these days. It happens again and again that people either catch COVID a week before their departure, and it's good to have a benefit that's called canceled for any reason. That is applicable to Canadians only at this point still, but it means you need to purchase your travel insurance within 72 hours of making your initial trip deposit. There it is. Purchase a package of insurance, not just cancellation only, because it's much better benefits. And there is a pandemic plan that gives you really good quarantine coverage as well. Go to our website or call us. We can refer you, if you're not living in British Columbia, to how to cover yourself best with insurance. So just as a reminder, travel insurance is more important than ever these days. Has always been important, but more than important than ever. Now to some fun parts. Many of you may have seen this already in our newsletter. Every month we have a challenge, and we will come up with a list of 25. We've had, 25 reasons why we love our jobs. That's how we started. Then we had the top 25 dive destinations that you sent to us. We compiled them. Then we've had 25 reasons why you love to travel. And this month, we are asking you to send us 10 of your favorite ocean creatures that you love to dive with. And out of that, we're compiling this, and we will have our draw among all the entries next week. Monday is the 25th. And then we will, in our next newsletter, you will also see the list of what you voted on. You can either vote by email, contest@flyindsea.com, or on our Facebook page or Instagram. Australia. Let's travel to Australia. What do we know about Australia? Iconic Sydney Opera House, the Sydney Harbour with the Sydney Bridge, the famous bridge climb up there, beautiful beaches, rainforest, waterfall. This is up in Queensland. Interesting Aborigine culture, cute animals, and red soil. These are just a few highlights of what we know Australia for. However, we also know Australia has fabulous diving, and that's why we're here tonight. So we want to learn more about fabulous diving, and so I will actually switch gear. Craig Stephen, who is the owner of Mike Ball Dive Expeditions. Hi, Craig. Thank you for
everybody
tonight.
Good evening. Good evening.
I will hand it over to you.
All righty. Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. And nice to have you all here. Nice to be here with you. And actually, I've got right now on Spoil Sport, we've got a couple of Canadians out there, some of our first international travellers that are starting to arrive in Australia. So that's fantastic. And I'm going to give a shout out, Sandra Ross, Bruce McIntosh, and Brian Monteith. I saw your comments, and you've all been out in Spoil Sport historically, which is wonderful. So there we go, a couple of advocates for us. Look, I'll give you a quick overview of what we're about to do and where the company's at as well. I would suggest that some of you will be familiar with Mike Ball, and I certainly am. I've been with Mike since 1995, so I've been around a long time and worked on all vessels in Australia, up in Papua New Guinea, and moved through various roles on board the vessel, and came into the office in 2002 as Mike's operations manager, and still going out in the vessel, trip directing, potentially was out with some of you guys who were out with us in the past. And a few years ago, Mike and I decided that he could go off and retire and play golf or whatever he wanted to do. And because I'd been running the company for quite some time, I'm going to run through and give you an overview. I've got a slide presentation. So some of you may be familiar with the product, but we have got lots of product on offer. We've got 8 different expeditions on the go. We've evolved some new expeditions during COVID, made some shorter expeditions, and we also had the opportunity to go out and do some exploration as well. And we've put another expeditions on as a result of that. It can be quite overwhelming when I run through this, but what I will do is I'll get you to focus more on our standard expeditions. So if you've never been to Australia before, our standard expeditions are what give you a great overview and a great feeling for the diving that happens here in Australia. We get lots of repeat customers that come back time and time again, and as a result, we've expanded and put on a lot more expeditions so people can come back and have a taste of something different in Australia. So I'll run through things. I'll give you an update on the Barrier Reef. I will show you a couple of our iconic expeditions as well. And we'll also talk about the Great Barrier Reef and the state of the Great Barrier Reef as well, because I think that's important as the oceans are under pressure. Globally, I think it's good for you to have a feel for what you'd be expecting when you come down under. And we'll finish off with a nice video that we had produced by Tourism Events Queensland. Actually, they used our vessel, but they used that to promote liveaboard diving in Australia when they were trying to encourage Aussies to come out and travel. And they have been, and we've been very fortunate, and we've managed to operate for the last 2 years. So we've not had any time out at all, and I'll explain that as we go as well. So now what I will do, we'll focus on, these are what we call our standard expeditions. As I said, we have 8 different expeditions on the go. But what the expeditions do is they allow for, if you've only got a short vacation time in Australia or you're very new to diving, you can do our 3-night. Our 4-night is a bit more adventurous, which goes out into the Coral Sea. We also created a 5-night expedition during COVID times, and we condensed everything from a 7-night down into a 5-night to allow us to go into 2 different areas of operation, which you'll see will become obvious on the map when I flick over there. And then the 7-night is a combination of these. So let me move on. And as I say, the cod hole and ribbon reefs, where we've got these beautiful big potato cods, we dive the lagoon side, so the protected side of the Great Barrier Reef, and the ribbon reefs in the far north, which is only accessible by liveaboard. So lots of, there are companies that promote and market diving and the best liveaboards in cairns or off cairns, and no disrespect to lots of other products out there, but at the end of the day, if you want to see the true Great Barrier Reef, you need to get well away from where day vessels can go and venture out on liveaboards. So our cod hole and ribbon reef expedition, that focuses on the Great Barrier Reef and the ribbon reef section north and the further north, and then the Coral Sea. We go out to atolls out in the Coral Sea and we spend time out there, which is your classic big blue diving with steep walls and sharks, big soft corals and fans. I would suggest that on the ribbon reefs, the cod hole, the ribbon reef section, greater biodiversity there because we've got really prolific coral growth there because of its sheltered waters and a lot of critters and marine life in there. So divers who are just coming here for the first time, we would recommend a 3-night on the ribbon reefs because it is fairly sheltered diving, and it's a place where you can go in comfort. You're not impacted dramatically by big currents. The depth there ranges. I mean, if you've dived coral reefs before, generally speaking, the best diving, because all the colour is above 60 feet. And I think in Canada, you may be thinking, so you could be zooming in from anywhere. So 60 feet or 20 meters, but the sand or the maximum depth around on the ribbon reefs gets to about, on average, 30 meters or 100 feet. So it's nice and safe and easy for new divers, whereas the Coral Sea, that's fathomless, if you like, out there. It drops to 1,000 meters, 2,000 to 3,000 feet, big steep walls. So when you're out in the Coral Sea, you don't really want to be out there if you're still thinking about managing your buoyancy and you might be still using a bit of air. So more novice, more experienced out here. So our standard expeditions, we're based in Cairns, so you'll need to get out your map. Australia is a huge country. The continent is the size of Europe and then some. You fit the whole of the United Kingdom into Queensland there. So we're way up in the far north here, up in Cairns, and we are based out of Cairns. In the past, in the very early days, we were based out of Townsville and Cairns. Sport used to operate out of Townsville, now in Cairns. But so all of our expeditions run from Cairns. We have some, our special expeditions, which go out of Townsville, where we are at the moment, but we only do a few expeditions from there every year. So looking at this strong red line here, that is our start of our 4-night expedition. So this is a standard expedition. Now, and also at the end, we're going to do a prize draw. So if you keep your listening ears on, and whoever can come up and let me know what is the best 7-night expedition to get the best of the Great Barrier Reef and the Coral Sea, all right, if you've never been here before. Righty, so moving from Cairns, we head out to Bougainville Reef. Now, obviously, every expedition that we do, as you know, everything is relative to weather. But on average, we would get out to Bougainville or about 70% of the time with the weather. Osprey Reef is more up around the 85-90%. So we head out here, we spend a day in Bougainville Reef, which is stunning diving. As I said, it's the big blue, beautiful corals, and the topography is quite amazing. But it's so far out, and it is actually a marine park as well. Bougainville has been declared a marine park, as has Osprey in 2018. Took a long time to get there, but it is a marine park now. So it doesn't come subject to any pressure from commercial fishing, and it's so far out, there are very, very few domestic fishermen get out there as well. So we'll head out to Bougainville, spend the day there, leaving Thursday night, Friday at Bougainville. We steam overnight to Osprey, and we spend Saturday and Sunday on Osprey. Osprey is a bigger reef area, more protected. You'll see the shark feed coming up in the Vimeos, I think you did on that promo one. And we conduct our shark feed at Northbourne. But Osprey Reef is a beautiful reef, amazing corals and soft corals and prolific marine life. And that's where we see our bigger marine life out on Osprey Reef there. So Friday diving Bougainville, Saturday, Sunday Osprey, and then we come into Lizard Island overnight. So we're in at Lizard Island on a Monday morning. Now, in the past, we simply did our transfer of passengers. We had guests who only wanted to do the 4-night. They could then fly back to Cairns in the morning. Guests would fly up to join the vessel, and then we would do the 3-night back down the Ribbon Reefs here. Guests who want to stay on for the 7-night, they can. And what they do, in the past, we were not diving on that morning for the 7-night guests. They'd go over to the island, have a look around the island, a great opportunity to stretch your legs halfway through the expedition. But now it's up to the guests. We allow them to dive in the morning if they wish, or they can go for a walk on the island. Once we've got the guests all on board, then we steam out to the cod hole area, and we'll be diving there by lunchtime on Monday, and we spend the rest of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday diving down the Ribbon Reefs. All right, so that's a 4-night to here, 3 nights, join the vessel, fly up, and we do a spectacular low-level flight. We go right out over the Ribbon Reef, so you get an amazing view of the reef from the air, and then come back down the ribbon. So you can do the 3-night, the 4-night, or stay on for 7 nights. If you know your dates work out and you want the dedicated 7-night expedition, a Coral Sea Exploratory 7-night, which you see here. Now, this is basically the same as the 7-night I showed previously, this one, but what we do is we take in Holmes Reef. So if the dates that you're traveling, you want to do a 7-night, but you can't get onto the dates that we have set for the exploratory, you still get this 7-night, which is wonderful. But we're fixed in the direction that we travel. So when I spoke about the weather can determine what we do. And whereas if you have the time and when you book an expedition, you want to do a 7-night expedition, you should look for the Coral Sea Exploratory 7-night, which gives you the best of the Ribbon Reefs, and it also gives you the best of the Coral Sea. but we also take in Holmes Reef as well. Now, these are about another 70 miles beyond the barrier reef. Again, not reachable. All the Cairns dive sites down the bottom here, again, that's as far as you can travel, or up to the Agincourt Reefs here with Port Douglas with day boats. All of our diving is Cooktown and up, only reachable by liveaboards, and certainly out here you can only get out here by liveaboards. The beauty of the 7-night Coral Sea Exploratory is that regardless what weather comes at us, we can travel in this direction clockwise, or we can go counterclockwise. So we simply look at the weather pattern over the 7 nights, and then we decide which way we're going to go. Coming into Lizard Island, as I said, we come in, beautiful. It's absolutely stunning in Lizard Island. But again, you've got the opportunity to go and stretch your legs, go for a bit of a walk around the island for a short. It's only an hour, about an hour and a half at the most on the island. Or we have a dive site tucked over in the corner here, which is a nursery for small fish life, where we can dive in the morning before going back out into the reef. As I said, our flights, the view is spectacular. It really is on the way up. So you get a terrific view on the way up or the way back. It's also a low-level flight as well. So as you can see, we're only flying at 300 meters, about 1,000 feet. But always recommending to divers to watch their profiles on their last dive of the day on a Sunday before we head off. So these are just typical views from the air, obviously. I mean, these days with drones, we get terrific. This is taken from a drone. We get terrific footage. This is Pixie Reef, one of the dive sites that we do. Beautiful pinnacle down here on the ribbon reefs. The weather comes in from this direction predominantly. So as I said, the ribbon reefs, it's a beautiful protection of the lagoon up in the back here. So we get great protection here, as opposed to Osprey Reef. Now, Osprey Reef stretches for about 13 miles. It's a huge reef system. Single reef, though. And we've got lots of dive sites down the southeasterly protected side. And this area, what you see right at the tip here, this is North Horn, and this is where we conduct our shark feed. And we have an absolutely stunning drift dive, or a one-way swim, pending the current moving along here, along the western wall here, which has got stunning vistas of soft corals. It really is quite incredible. This is typical out at Osprey Reef. We have a site called False Entrance, so you can get these vistas of the trevally, big-eyed trevally, or jacks, as you may call them, out there. And we've got big schools of barracuda out there, so you really get these terrific big blue shots. Grey reef sharks are our predominant species out at Osprey Reef. And the grey reef, we have silver tips that come in as well, but our shark feed, now we do a shark feed, and just so you understand, that we do the shark feed for educational purposes. It's not a Yahoo experience, if you like. It's about allowing or being able to get our divers up very close to sharks. It's very controlled. They're only fed very small portions of food. It's sanctioned by Parks Australia as well, because it is a marine reserve. And I personally have worked very hard with Parks for many, many years to get this process, to not only get the reefs declared as a park, but also with the implementation of all of the procedures and systems that we use to manage the park. So I'm still heavily involved with that. But grey reef, the predominant species. We do get silver tips come in there. White tip reef sharks are common out there as well. And during the months of coming from about April now through till September, we get scallop hammerheads in as well. So I was out on the boat 2 weeks ago, was lucky enough to see some scallop hammerheads. Not schooling yet. We get larger schools of them later on. But again, it's grey reefs every day, every week, whereas the hammerheads are a winter, predominantly in the winter, though great hammerheads we can see anytime. And there's one, lo and behold. So if you're lucky enough, and we had some people out in the boat last week saw the hammerheads for the first time. This is the western wall at Osprey Reef, which is wonderful. We actually have our video pro sits under this ledge and gets divers as they swim back to get that classic picture out on the reef there. Nice shot of Bougainville. We've got wrecks on Bougainville. We predominantly dive around this northwest side here and up in here. Crystal Plateau, stunning. And we've got other sites along this edge here. Very small reef though, but we only spend a day there, so more than enough time to take in the best of it. And when we have westerly winds coming in this direction, we can dive these wrecks out here. Now, these wrecks are just strewn all over the reef edge there, but beautiful dive site nonetheless. This is out in Bougainville Reef, Dungeons and Dragons, got that beautiful cabbage coral there. And again, I'll elaborate on the corals and the state of the corals shortly. So this is Pixie Pinnacle, and the three guys who have been out with us before quite possibly dived that. But Pixie's looks as good as the first time I dived Pixie Pinnacle was in 1987, and it's looking as good today as it was then. Alrighty, critter-wise, if you like mackerel, then we have pygmy seahorses. We've got ghost pipefish. We find our crew are very good at spotting animals, so it's something that we ensure that you see on the different sites. We make sure that we point these out to you. We do open dive decks, so we'll be diving on sites for 2, sometimes 3 dives, and photographers particularly enjoy that, so they can get down and see all the different animals. And again, if you like the big stuff, so our iconic potato cod, which are still thriving up in the cod hole, again, photo opportunities. It's not all about photography, just marvel at their beauty, but you do get some great opportunities like that to take photographs. Scorpion fish of different types are stonefish, common on Steve's Bummy, another classic dive site. And give you an idea of the coral, this is a site called Two Towers. In 2016 and 2017 in particular, we had a big bleaching event on the Great Barrier Reef, and this particular reef was nothing but rubble. The coral had all died off, and this is a recovery. In fact, this photograph was actually taken a year and a half ago, so it's from 16-17 bleaching event. It's had quite a few years, so the growth on this is even larger than what you're seeing now. So it's the narrative now is prior to this big bleaching event was the reef is dead and dying. It is under enormous pressure, as we all know, as our reefs globally, from global warming, and but it's the narrative is now changed on the recovery, and the scientists are now, since 1617, we were all a bit concerned. It didn't impact on all reefs. Our reefs that we dive on the ribbons and the far north and on the outer edge of the reef, now they're getting flushed with current, they're getting flushed with cooler water, so they don't have the same issues as the reefs that are in the lagoon on the very inside of the reef. So your mid-shelf reefs, they're the ones that suffer mostly, whereas your reefs on the outer reef, they recover very quickly. And there's a great example of how the reefs do recover. Again, ribbon reefs. So fabulous wildlife on the ribbon reefs, as I said, from mackerel to larger animals. And again, we have aggregations of fish. These are our line sweetlip who turn up at the cod hole, and at certain times of year. They're there year round, but we have big aggregations of them at different times. So that was our standard expeditions there. And then we move on to what we call our special expeditions. So the previous expeditions, the standard expeditions, would be, if you've never been to Australia, you want the best of it, have a look at doing a standard expedition. These ones are fantastic. There's no ifs and buts. There are special expeditions, but the standard ones we run more regularly. They're closer to home. We have the opportunity with the 7-night Coral Sea Exploratory to work with the weather as well, which is always more favourable for all of us at the end of the day. So I'll give you an overview of our special. So here's our standard ones here. As I said, the map gets confusing, so if what we've just spoken about is what's happening here. And our special expeditions, we run what we call a turtle spectacular. So during November and December, we have, if you've seen David Attenborough, Blue Planet, when all the turtles aggregate up around Rain Island up in the north here. So we go here when the turtles are coming in to lay their eggs, which is around about November, but it starts around about October, and they're still laying through November, December, and then they're starting to all hatch around January. We don't go on the island, it's a protected area, but on Rain Island we are permitted to dive on the eastern side. So we're well away from the marine park. We're not interfering with them. But the corals up there are beautiful, and we get an opportunity to, if we're lucky, we're in there having a dive, and we've got lots of turtles moving around at the same time, which is great. We had a terrific year this year, and saw tiger sharks as well on our dive. So November, December, Turtle Spectacular. We do a one-way 7-night all the way up to Horn Island. So we fly in and out of Horn Island. Now that's a commercial flight straight into Horn Island. Qantas do that, so you can easily fly into Horn Island and back again. I'd suggest you'd be coming into Cairns and flying from Cairns to Horn Island, but it's a domestic flight. Sorry, a normal commercial flight in and out. So you can go south to north, or you can go north to south. Now, weather-wise at that time of year, generally the weather is fantastic around about October, November, December. So either direction doesn't make any difference. And for 23, we're also putting on an Ashmore expedition. So we never dive this far north. Ashmore is on the same latitude as East Cape. That map would actually show PNG down here a little bit more. So Ashmore is actually on the same latitude as up in Papua New Guinea. So this offshore reef is very different from these ones to the south. These would be fairly common with the species that you'll get on there, whereas up here we have different coral species and different fish life as well, but mostly the coral species, black coral trees and the likes up there. So things are a bit different. So we're doing a 7-night up here as well. And as I said, the historical stuff of our Yongala expeditions out of Townsville, and we're diving the Yongala wreck down to the south and Flinders Reef as well, and coming up to Holmes and back into Cairns. So we move around a lot. Minke whales in June and July, largest aggregation of minke whales known to anyone in the world. So we're fortunate enough that the minkies come to us. They are a very curious animal. We've got special permits and special conditions to swim with them. So it's not something we can just jump in anywhere and do what we want to do. We are licensed. We hold meetings every year with Barrier Reef Marine Parks and other stakeholders to ensure that we're all complying and ensuring that we're doing the best with regards to swimming with these amazing animals. But they are absolutely fabulous. I'll show you a Vimeo of them very shortly. And again, you get incredible close-up encounters with the minke whale. So very much so a bucket list thing. We're not famed for whale shark, but over the last few years, the East Coast, we're getting more and more and more juvenile whale sharks appearing here. And this was actually it was a nice surprise out at the shark feed at North Horn, and a whale shark swam through in the middle of the shark feed. So I think everyone was treated to a real surprise that day, which was wonderful. But we're seeing a lot more whale sharks these days. Manta rays, Great Barrier Reef during our summertime, your winter time, and during our winter we see more mantas, which we're coming into our winter here. We see more mantas out there, and our winter out here is not very cold at all, as you can imagine. It's our winters are absolutely gorgeous, like a good summer's day in my old country. So the Far North Coral Sea Exploratory as well. Again, something different for those who have been here many times. So we visit 3 different areas in the Coral Sea Exploratory. We visit the ribbon reefs, so incredible biodiversity. We do a couple of days on the ribbon reefs, we do a couple of days out in the Coral Sea, and then we do a couple of days in the far northern reefs. And again, the continental shelf comes in closer the further north we go. So we have more upwelling, we have clearer water, we have cooler water, more prolific coral growth up there. And again, and also we have more pelagic species on these far northern coral reefs than what we experienced on the ribbon reef. So again, something different. The turtles, this is actually on Rain Island. So beautiful corals up there. Again, unusual corals, but absolutely stunning. And we have lots of turtles coming around. We introduced not so long ago Stanley Islands, of a group of islands up there which have got some incredible indigenous artwork up there. And so we do a stop off, and we're only allowed 15 guests on the island at a time. So we cycle people through, and we go and look at the indigenous rock art, which is absolutely stunning. Again, managed by Parks Australia and Queensland Parks and Wildlife. So It has a lovely boardwalk up to there, and it ensures that no one gets close to the artwork, which is stunning. Something new for us, the Museum of Underwater Art. If you're on the Yongala expeditions, it's a bit unique. It's a unique, I don't know, novel maybe, but it seems that most of our guests that visit the Museum of Underwater Art these days quite enjoy it. So we stop in there for one afternoon dive, and we do a night dive on the local reef there as well. But unusual and very different. The Yongala, stunning dive site, and on the Yongala we would have there's more marine life on one dive on the Yongala than you might see in your lifetime of diving. It really is an incredible wreck. The wreck's not renowned for a ship per se, although it was washed away. All of the coral was torn off it some years ago with a cyclone and exposed more of the wreck, so you can very much see the ship underneath, which was sunk around 2012, I think. Don't hold me to that. But the fish life, the marine life on it is second to none. It really is stunning. We've been around for a long time. We just celebrated our 50 years a couple of years ago. So 1969 is when Mike first started in the industry. So we have been around a little while. And some of these characters, we have lots of crew who are still with us. I mean, as I said myself, I started in 95. We've got Peter Conlon, one of the captains there, has done over 15 years. Karen, trip director, he's been with us for around 15 years as well. So, and Russell, this is Russell, one of our old masters from way back in the day, was working with us in the 80s. He has returned and is now driving and working as an engineer. So, Hotel California, you can check out, but you cannot leave Mike Bull Dive Expeditions. So there you go. We've got 20 guests on board. We have got a nice big sunshade up there. We also added more sunshades during COVID times on the alfresco to encourage people to eat outside for their dining. Different cabins. We have premium cabins, which have got double beds up the front, queen beds at the back, all with ensuite. So these are a bit more spacious. The premium cabins. Our standard cabins have single beds side by side, but they all have a window view. So all the cabins on the extremities have window views. And then we have club cabins down the middle, which are over and under bunk with ensuite also. And then we've got two budget cabins down the bottom at the front of the vessel here with over and under bunks, and they've got a separate shower and bathroom. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 different levels of accommodation to suit. Premium cabin is a view. This is our standard cabin layout, and that's the layout of our club cabin. Okie doke. Nice big sun deck, as I said, so we've got lots of area for you to get out of the sun and to relax between dives. And we also have a nice big lounge area. We've got public access computers there for downloading photographs or doing whatever. And we've got a couple of TVs up there we run Reef Ecology program on board, and we show trip videos and photo competitions at the end of the expedition. And we've also got a very big dive deck. The beauty of Spoil Sport, she's about 10.5 meters or approximately 30 feet in beam. So we've got lots of room on board Spoil Sport. A nice big camera table there, and lots of space for all the divers. We also have 2 rubber boats that assist to as rescue vessels, but also for conducting drift dives, running people in and out. Safety is our first priority, so that is at the top of the tree for us always, is that we ensure that everyone is safe first, and after that is to have a wonderful time. So we ensure that everyone has a marine rescue GPS, very rarely used, in fact once or twice I think over the last decade or so, I would suggest. So we've had them on board for about 6 or 8 years now, I think. So, but fortunately, not used very often. Chef-prepared meals we have also. So we've got a couple of wonderful chefs on board, and we can cater to all dietary requirements. So no problem at all with any dietary requirements whatsoever. And we also have master reef guides. So our master reef guides, Barrier Reef Marine Parks made a program not so long ago, and really educating all of the people who were working out on the reef to ensure that the correct story is being given to guests that come and visit us. And we are fortunate enough at this moment to have 2 master reef guides in our company, and we've got some more going for training in the near future as well. Whilst we're full of knowledge anyway, but Barrier Reef Marine Parks are very keen to ensure that the right story is being told. So there you go. There is the end of my slide presentation. And we'll jump into a short video of the minke whales.
You just going on the water, huh? Oh.
If you could maybe click to David Hannon's video of the barrier reef, and then I can have a bit of a chat about that after.
Absolutely.
the reason I think it was important for us to get over some information about the barrier reef, and it gets a lot of bad press, and as we all know, bad press definitely sells. But we had a big bleaching event in 1617. We've had historically, as I said, I've been diving here since '87, and I've experienced bleaching events at different times, and it's a cycle of how often those events come around, which is the bigger concern. I'm sure you're all aware, because the closer the events are, the less time the reef has to recover. And up until 1617, and we have a lot of research. We actually facilitate researchers on board, and we also contribute on a weekly basis to research also back to James Cook University and Great Barrier Reef Marine Parks. But the narrative up until 1617 was that the reef is dying, and the reef is dying and not recovering. Now, there was not so much focus put on, which concerned me a lot, was from a tourism perspective, was the recovery rate of the reef. And so whilst our concerns are as great as yours and everyone else's about the global warming and the impacts that it's having on everything, but in order to protect our industry, we had to ensure that a better message was getting out there of what you would actually see when you came here. And certainly dive shows that I'd been to in the US and the UK in 2019, it was a word on everyone's lips, but the barrier reef's not worth coming to see, is it? It's dead. David Hannon, who shot that last segment of Reef that you saw there. Now, David, I've known David for a long time. David's a cinematographer. He produced some marvelous movies back in the 80s called Coral Sea Dreaming, in the early 90s, and he did a couple of repeats of that same movie that he released at different times. Now, David came out to film the reef, and he said, look, Craig, I'd like to come out and capture the reef as it is now. So we've got some history for the future. And he said, and it's of concern. But now, so David, over the last 3 years, has done back-to-back expeditions, 5 weeks at a time, 1 week after the next, so he can capture a good chunk of the barrier reef and what's happening with the reef at the moment. And so David's out again. He's got another 5 expeditions, I believe, coming up back-to-back during October, November this year as well. And David's narrative has changed also, as have the scientists, because what they're amazed at is the recovery of the reef. So if you look at the plate corals that you saw on the reef there, they're all plate-sized corals, but some of these plate corals grow up to table-sized corals, huge corals. Now, again, your reefs on the outer side where we dive, they get flushed, they get cooler water. The reefs that are sitting in the lagoon are the ones that struggle more. They're not getting cool enough water, they're not getting flushed well enough, and they're the ones that struggle after a big bleaching event. But the prolific growth that we've encountered over the last few years is just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And the reefs, as I said, they were, some of them, Two Towers, which was played earlier on, was a dead reef, and now it is absolutely thriving. So we're seeing some amazing regrowth, not taking away at all. I'm not a climate skeptic at all. I'm a big believer in it, of course I am. But at the end of the day, it's getting the balance in for us in tourism to say to you, is it worth your while coming from the other side of the world to dive on the Great Barrier Reef? Categorically, yes, absolutely. It's wonderful, and it's in wonderful condition. We still have to be advocates and champions and put pressure on our governments to do something about what's happening globally, but the reef is in great shape, so good news there. So I am happy. Petra, if we want Q&A.
Yeah, Anne has asked, what are the water temperature and what's the range of the water temperature, Craig?
So we get in the winter, I'm going to look at the notes here because I need to do a quick conversion across the Fahrenheit.
So your winter is our summer. We got to keep that in mind, right?
Absolutely. So we're just coming into our winter now. And it gets very cold out there, and it goes all the way down to a chilling 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's our winter months. So 75 degrees Fahrenheit. and about as warm as it will get would be around 84 Fahrenheit in the summer. So during the months of, let me look here now, during the months of around from May, June, July, August, we're ranging from 75 to 79. Yeah, 79 to 75 degrees. September, it starts to warm up again. So 79 up to 80, 82 degrees in summertime, which is November, December, January, February.
Kim is asking, leading into that, is there a best time to visit?
Yeah, look, weather-wise, I mean, I don't, the weather patterns have changed so much. We would still, our exploratory expeditions are generally based around weather. So we have, during October, November, December, these are when we do our far northern expeditions, because generally the weather patterns are more stable around that time of year. So that's October, November, December. Our winter months are from May, June, July, August. Now, June and July, however, is right in the middle of winter, but that's when our minke whales come. So we have this incredible interaction with the minke whales right in the middle of our winter, your summer, which is fantastic, June and July. But the ribbon reef section, we can dive the ribbon reefs any time of the year because it's so well protected in behind the ribbon reefs. But if you look at on our website and you look at where the expeditions go, the special expeditions, October, November, December. Now, during January, February, March, April, this is our cyclone season. But the other side of a cyclone season is you generally have still weather also. So if you don't have a cyclone, we have good weather. So we still do exploratory expeditions during those months as well. It's the hot summer, very wet on land because we're very tropical up here, but at sea, we don't have the rain doesn't pour so much out in the ocean, it sticks to the land. So we generally have calm conditions around there as well.
What else may you want to see and do in Australia when you go, right? So that's a concern.
That's right. I mean,
yeah.
I think one thing you need to think about is in the summertime, when people complain it's raining, they say, well, it's a rainforest and we need the rain, lots of it. And the rain generally, I would suggest from December through March is our real wet season where it does get hot and sticky. Now, bear that in mind. It does get hot and sticky. If you're going to do land tours in Australia, I would, and it's getting the balance, but your land tours in Australia are best during your summer, our winter. So it's a lot more comfortable for you. The rainforest is there year round, but it's the weather from now through till October. So from April through to October, the weather here is beautiful for everyone. To do anything and do everything, the weather's fantastic. November through March is our hot, wet, tropical time. But it's warm rain.
A few dive-specific questions. Is nitrox available?
Yes, it is, yeah.
And is side mount diving allowed?
Side mount, absolutely, yes. So we cater to all technical divers, so rebreathers. All of our crew are also, we have a few technical divers amongst our crew and rebreather divers. So you can bring along a rebreather, you can bring side mounts, not a problem at all.
And Brian is asking if solo diving is allowed.
Yes, it is. So Mike introduced this a long time ago. Mike was a bit of a rebel, still is, I believe. And Mike introduced solo diving a long time ago. And so we used to permit it. You'd come on board, you'd do a short skill circuit. We'd make sure that you had the prerequisites of at least 100 dives and other skills. And you'd do the short circuit, then we'd let you go solo diving. These days, though, it has been introduced. We did SDI for many years because they actually viewed their solo certification as a solo card. You could go off and do it. Paddy used to have the self-reliant, which meant that you could be self-reliant, but you still had to be in a buddy situation. But here in Australia, at least, the self-reliant course is recognised, providing you have the prerequisites. Now, we also teach that course on board. It's a nice, easy course to do. Photographers, if we've got photographers on board, they love it. So you can actually do that course on board with us.
Question from Ed. Is most diving conducted directly from the spoil sport?
Most of it. We have moorings on majority of our dive sites. So we drive straight up to the dive site, we pick up the mooring, and you jump off the vessel and your diving's there. So So it's nice and easy. Generally with the tenders, we're using the tenders when we're doing a drift dive. Otherwise, the vast majority of diving is directly off the vessel, yeah.
Or 19-liter pony bottles available?
We've got, what we have is we've got 7-liter steel bailout bottles for technical divers. We've got 15-liter, we only have a handful of 15-liter steel tanks on board. All of the rest are aluminium tanks, which are 10.3 to 11.3, I think, on average. 80 or 88 cubic foot is our standard aluminium tanks. But we do have 5, I think, large steel tanks for heavy breathers.
Just a reminder for everyone that because of our anniversary, every booking with us this year is being entered into a 9-night magic resorts in the Philippines dive vacation for 2 people. But tonight we actually do have a draw as well, thanks to Mike Ball Dive Expeditions and Craig here. We are drawing for a 500 Mike Ball dollars towards a standard 3, 4, 5 night sailing or the Coral Sea Exploratory Expedition.
So if you're coming to Australia for the first time and you want to have a wonderful experience of the Coral Sea and the Great Barrier Reef, what is the best 7-night expedition for you? That's the question.
Let's do it the way we normally do it. When we draw you, you need to know the answer. So we actually have 79 people who registered. So I'm going to draw a number between 1 and 79. And obviously you need to be here. And then you need to give us the right answer. And you can do that in the chat when it's time to do so. Number 30, Rick Treepwasser, are you here? All right, what's the answer? Craig, what do you say?
Pretty close. It's exploratory, but it's pretty close.
So we will allow this answer.
I'd give it to Coral Sea Exploratory.
Bit of a reminder. This was our last presentation today. We will take this back up in September, and some of you have already read this in our newsletter. If you have a suggestion or you do want to see a specific operator or destination that we feature in our webinars, please let us know. Please subscribe to our newsletter. That way you will get notification of the next trip.
Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Obviously, if you've got any more questions, you can ask Petra. But I really do hope you enjoyed it. We've been very fortunate. We've been operating for the last 2 years. We've got very good strict COVID processes in place, so we've managed to look after our guests and our crew, and we've had some fantastic diving. We've had great support from Australia. We're now starting to get a trickle in from overseas, so we're really looking forward to people coming back and joining us and enjoying this. So, you know, the world's in a bit of turmoil at the moment, but getting under the waves and blowing out bubbles is such good therapy. So I really do look forward to seeing some of you down under. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Craig, for your time
Pleasure.
and expertise. And so we really appreciate you being part of this. And we will see you back in September. Have a wonderful summer, everyone. Bye.